Hello, welcome back. It's Steph here. Delighted to have you join me for another week's episode of my little podcast just for today. I probably say this at the start of every episode, but when I was thinking about what to talk to you about today, I was a little bit stumped, let's be honest. I was racking my brains, thinking, I've covered so many topics. What do people want to hear from me? And at the same time, I was chatting to two of my friends about a personal experience I was going through, and they were like, maybe a topic for the podcast. So here I am. This week's episode is only really going to be applicable to a certain number of women that are listening to this. However, I would strongly suggest you listen anyway, because when I say the word perimenopause, menopause, you might think I'm years off. I don't need to listen to that. But if I'd have had somebody that could have come and spoken to me about it maybe 10, 15 years ago and just pre-warned me of what might go on for me at the time when I started making those changes and experiencing those changes, forewarned is forearmed, isn't it? And I love to take a proactive approach to change. And I've worked really hard to get myself into a proactive space versus a reactive space. But just like everything, life can throw new things at you and you go to reactive before you can get to proactive. So that's where I'm at when it comes to change. And I'm talking about the change of menopause. And yesterday I was really, really emotional. I was 7 days late from my cycle, and I have historically been on time my whole life, my whole menstruating life. Since I got my period at the age of 14, I have regularly had that 28-day cycle. I am very blessed, I know, to be in that situation. I've had 3 children. I've had surgery to rectify some of the problems I was having with my periods after having children and after being sterilised. And everything was just ticking along nicely. And then I would say 2 years ago, everything started to slowly, actually it was probably longer than that, but 2 years ago it was recognisable that things were changing. And this week, something else changed and it really threw me off. I was late for my period, and I reflect a lot on voice notes with my Doris, Lauren, and I messaged her and said, 7 days late. And in the history of me, that has either been shit, I'm 7 days late, or oh my God, my period's late, which indicates pregnancy, which is really exciting. And as females, I guess, again, I can only speak for myself, we are programmed to be expectant of that monthly cycle. And when it doesn't come, it's because either intentionally we don't want it to come, or unintentionally it's not showing up and it might be a bit of a whoopsie or not, okay? But my experience of being a female is you're either excited to see it, you're either indifferent to see it because it's what happens, or you're quite scared that it's not arrived yet. And all of this stuff started going through my head. Like, I've never had a late cycle which hasn't really resulted in a pregnancy before. And at the age I'm at now, 49, I'm expecting the natural process to take its course because I have already been experiencing perimenopausal symptoms for a while now. Body change, hormone change, mood change, all of that fun stuff. But I hadn't stopped regularly having my bleed. And so I'm just chuckling to myself as I'm talking because I know Tom that edits my podcast. I'm just imagining his face right now thinking, oh no, she's talking about periods again. Oh dear. Anyway, I completely digress. So, getting back to the point, and I've forgotten my point now, Tom, so you can edit this bit out when I catch myself again, but don't edit out the point where I talk about you. For those of you on YouTube, I don't edit any of this stuff out. So, 7 days late, and I am feeling symptoms of it coming, but nothing is coming. I'm starting to feel really bloated. I'm starting to feel really blocked up. But there's no sign. There's no sign that it's physically arriving. And then yesterday, when I hit that 7 day, was it 8 day? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, when I hit that marker, I was chatting on voice message with Lauren, and we were talking about what happens when it just one day disappears, and that we're so used to having it. And like my husband being my husband, I was talking it through with him last night. He actually calculated roughly how many periods I've probably had my whole life since the age of 14. And I can't remember the number, but 350 or around that number. And we're so used to it, aren't we? It becomes part of us. And actually, it's our superpower as females, this beautiful monthly cycle that we go through, whether you go through it pain-free or painfully. You might not see it as a beautiful thing, but that cycle that we experience, those moments of high energy and drive and determination and power, and those beautiful moments where we go into ourselves and we want to hibernate and we want to tuck down, and then when we go through our bleed phase where we're releasing and we're letting go, and we have those emotional moments and all of that stuff that makes us woman. And as much as I at times felt frustrated with it and the inconvenience of it, it's something I love about being a woman as well, having the capability of making life, or not, if we choose not to, but having those options available to the majority of us. And I know for those of you that are listening that have had fertility struggles, I don't want this to land in an insensitive way. And I know that there will be different things attached to your cycle personally for you. But from a personal perspective, the thought all of a sudden that coming to an end yesterday really hit me and made me extremely emotional. The thought of that chapter in the book of Steph coming to an end really made me think. And I was voice noting my amazing business coach, Shelley Bosworth, and I was just telling her this is what's going on for me right now, because when I work with her, we talk about these things, because as women, what's going on in our cycle will impact our business as well, our work, our career. It will have an impact. And it's really important that we talk about these things so that we can not only support ourselves emotionally and physically, but also harness the power of it as well, and propel ourselves forward at the right times and pull back and be more reflective at other times. So I was reflecting on my voice note with Shelley, and then I just got really emotional that, as I say, that this chapter in my book is slowly coming to an end. And, you know, spoiler alert, I got my period about 3 hours after that emotional release. So, which indicates that it's not ready to finish yet, but I'm in that process, and I'm starting to move through that part of that coming to an end for me. And I know lots of other women will reflect at this time as, what does that say about me? What does that mean about me? Because historically, women of menopause age have been called crazy, psychotic, on the shelf. You know, the purpose of them is no longer deemed as anything relevant. I'm not necessarily finding the right words there, but that sort of whole term of on the shelf. And I decided yesterday, first of all, I allowed myself to feel it, because Steph of 15 years ago wouldn't have been going through this process, or maybe 20 years ago. But equally, she would have probably looked at another woman talking about it like she had two heads, because 20 years ago, you know, the period was a massive inconvenience. I would have had at that point, what would have I had? I would have had a small baby 20 years ago, and two small other boys. I would have seen my period as a total inconvenience because I was parenting and I was tired, and the last thing I needed was my period right now. But I still wanted my period because I didn't want to have any more children right now. And I was actively at that point in my life looking for ways to be rid of it all. I was sterilised a couple of years after having my younger son, because I was like, I'm done with creating life. And if I could have done, I probably would have paid someone to take it all away at that point. So I know that had I seen myself in the future 20 years ahead actually mourning the loss of her cycle, I thought I would have said to her, come on girl, sort it out, shake it off, woman, what are you talking about? But in a very different headspace now, and a lot more connected to myself, a lot more aware of myself and my emotions, and the beauty as well of learning the power of the female cycle, I do feel sad. I do feel like I'm losing one of my friends. And I know that sounds quite dramatic, and it's not on a devastatingly heartbreaking scale of losing a friend, but you know what I'm saying. A chapter in my life is coming to an end, and I know, and I deeply trust in myself that the next chapter is going to be better than any, because I have loved every decade that I've experienced so far. I might not, again, on reflections, 20-year-old Steph might not have agreed with that, and 30-year-old Steph might not, because in my 30s were some of my hardest experiences with my changes in my life that were happening then. But as I pushed into my 40s, I felt like a superwoman. And I am 1 year off my 50s, and again, I feel like a fucking superwoman. And I know that my cycle doesn't define me, but it's a piece of me that I'm getting ready to say goodbye to. And it's a piece of me that created the 3 children that I have, that created life, that I am getting myself and my mind prepared to say goodbye to. And that is sad to me. That feels a little, that does feel like something is going. And it can look like grief, even if it's not like the grief that I would associate with other things that I've let go of or said goodbye to. It's sad, and it is a piece it's a piece of the landscape of my life that I'm saying, thank you for everything that you did for me. Thank you for the beautiful gifts that you gave me and the things that you taught me about myself. And I'm getting ready to say goodbye to you. I'm mentally preparing to say goodbye to you. And it's a journey. It's emotional, and I'm getting emotional as I'm talking to you now about it, because there's so much beauty in that. But I know there's so much beauty to come as well, and a sense of, I said yesterday in a message to one of my friends that this is going to be my most wisdomist years yet, because I've been through that entire cycle. That second puberty, as my lovely friend Marie defines menopause as, I'm moving through it and I'm coming through it. And I know puberty took me into womanhood, and then menopause is going to take me into fucking queenhood. Like, I know it, and it's going to bring a sense of freedom. But before all that comes, I'm going to allow myself to feel everything that needs to be felt, to process and move myself forward. And it does bring me to that point of the absolute necessity to allow ourselves to feel, and not let that outdated programming or that noise that comes from external sources that says, come on now, it's only your bloody periods disappearing, or what. Well, it's not to me, and it might be to someone else, and that's okay for them. This is all okay for each one of us individually. But yesterday I was shown the real possibility, the reality of this change. And even though I'm not even at the end of that yet, yesterday was one step closer to that. And I am acknowledging that, and I'm allowing myself to feel that. Because this is what life's all about. It's about being present and allowing ourselves to feel. And if we don't do that, we can't heal. The saying goes, we can't allow ourselves to heal what we won't allow ourselves to feel. Is that right? We can't heal what we won't allow ourselves to feel. There you go. I am present here for all my emotions. And I was telling Grainger about it last night, of what I'm experiencing as well, because I want him to understand it. I want him to be able to understand, because men will never experience a bleed, a menstrual cycle. So the next best thing is being in the boat and rowing with the women in their lives and saying, I don't understand it, but I'm here to support you through it. And he does that beautifully. He always does that beautifully. So I was sharing with him last night around the sadness, and he's just like, that makes total sense to me. Why you would feel like that. I mean, you look at your children, and they came as a result of all of these amazing things that your body can do. So communicating our needs, and once we start allowing ourselves to feel our feelings, is so, so important. And I was working with a client this morning, and I said to her, how connected are you to your feelings? And she said, oh no, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I really do allow myself to feel. I said, yeah, but what step do you take next? How far do you track it back? How far do you discover what your emotions are actually showing up for? You know, why are you feeling anxious? Why are you feeling sad? Why are you feeling afraid? All of those. How far do you track back? How far do you go with that expression of emotion? And I gave her something to think about. And this is something that I do with all of my clients. I get them to connect with their feelings. And whether that's clients that work with me on a one-to-one basis, either through my in-person or on Zoom calls, one-to-one therapeutic mentoring, or my lovely offering of Steph in Your Pocket, which is the one-to-one mentoring with the virtual support in between the sessions as well. I'll put all the links in the show notes for you guys. Or through group settings. We still explore feelings, even in group settings. And the most relevant one to talk about right now is Disconnect to Reconnect, which is coming up on the 5th of May in Chelmsford. It's an in-person event, and we're going to, I say we because it's me and 6 other incredible women speakers. We're going to take the women that join us on a beautiful day of discovery, where we look at all of the different things that impact us through our lifetime and how we can connect to all of that and move ourselves forward with it. So if you're interested to find out more about anything that I've just spoken about, whether that's my one-to-one therapeutic mentoring, Steph in Your Pocket, or Disconnect to Reconnect, please do check the show notes because they are available to you right now. But everything I do with my clients, all the work I do with my clients is about connecting to your emotions and understanding why they're showing up and honouring them, allowing yourself to feel them so then you can move through them and take them with you on that deeper level of understanding. So if this is something that would be of value to you in your life, I'm here. I'm ready to work with you. Check out the links in the show notes. I hope this week's episode's been useful to you. It's been really lovely for me to share it with you. So until next time, lovely people.